Hello, folks, and welcome back to the Spawn Chunk world. We're going to do a little bit more teaching on the command block and talk about a new selector. We're going to do region selectors. And in order to demonstrate region selectors, what we're going to do is we're going to do mob control within this area. Now, right now we don't have any mobs, but I've allowed daylight to start ticking, and I'm going to change game difficulty to normal so that we'll get hostile mobs at night, and we'll want to be able to remove hostile mobs. Rather than have to light this whole area up, we're just going to get rid of them. Okay, so a quick update on where I left off. Like I said, I was going to complete the rest of the barrier wall, so I've done that. I've replaced the rest of the natural land with bedrock against the wall, and I've also created a barrier wall that goes all the way up to layer 255. And at the very top of the world, there is no ceiling of barrier. It's just a wall to prevent projectiles and other mobs from flying in. By and large, though, yeah, this is just so that you can let precip, which is a meteorological term for rain and snow, to fall within the region and keep it a little bit more natural. Now, obviously, I've just kind of created some flat grass here, and I haven't conformed to the edges of the landforms. I'm going to do that at some point, but I didn't really feel it was necessary at this point. And all I did to create this whole ground and the walls was just continued using the fill and clone commands, particularly fill and replace, and the clone commands just exactly how I demonstrated in the previous video. So, okay. That's enough explanation for what's going on topside. Right here is the center of my spawn chunks, this corner here. And I've created a command block that's going to TP me below. I've got a little platform below. Whoop, there we go. So there's a little platform sitting here at the top of my open area at the bottom here. So this is plenty, really more than enough room for command blocks to go down here. And it's just another command block here to bring me back up topside. That's all that is. They're just basic TP commands. We're going to sweeten these up with a little bit more detail later on in the series. So anyways, the floor, I've obviously changed it from bedrock, right? And what I've done is not only did I mark off the center, which you can do by, well, let's say this. Once you get this chunk pattern set up here, it's pretty easy to just kind of sort of look off toward the edge and go 1, 2, 3, yada, 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 all the way up to 8. That would be the 8th chunk from that wall. And you go, okay, well that's halfway through that way, and then you turn the other way, line yourself up with that seam, and go, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and you know that one's 8. And if you're on that corner, that's the center, so that's how you know where the center of your spawn chunks are. But anyways, so I decided to create this pattern. I wanted to completely light up the floor. Not only is it completely lit up, so that there's full light on everything down here that we're going to start building. But even though we're going to do some spawn protection for mobs, these are unspawnable surfaces. The mobs, both friendly and hostile, cannot spawn on these surfaces. And it also gives us a grid work to know where the edges of our chunks are. And if you remember from the Kick the Bucket series, you never want to go over that threshold of 63 command blocks clocking within a single chunk. And that rule extends throughout the depth of the world. It's not within a single chunk, it's just like within a footprint of a chunk, but it's all the way through the depth of it. So I can only put 63 command blocks in this entire vertical column here that will be on fill clocks or whatever. If I exceed that threshold, then I get an unacceptable jump in the amount of lag that I would ordinarily get. Command blocks will add a very minuscule amount of lag as you add more and more, and I'm talking dozens upon dozens of more, probably to the point of hundreds, where you'll actually start to feel some sort of lag. But if you exceed that 63 threshold, that's where it gets unacceptable. Like, once you do that once, you've got a serious problem. It's almost unplayable within the area. So I've beaten that dead horse. Anyways, so I use the fill and clone commands to create this entire floor here, but I also created set us up for another part of this. All the way across the floor, I've put glowstone. The only thing that's different here from the way we've demonstrated on the server is instead of sea lanterns, I use glowstone here. The reason why I did this layer of barrier and this layer of glowstone is we're going to do an execute detect for when players are over those two particular blocks at layers 0 and 1. And they're so unnatural and impossible for players to duplicate that it's a good way for saying, hey, you're in an admin area or a protected area, and we should be able to do something for that. Okay, so that's what I've done thus far. Completed the exterior wall, replaced the floor down here, and put some grass down there. Okay, that was, I think, probably too much explanation about what I've done since the last video. Let's dive right into doing region protection. So another similar thing we're going to have to do is we're going to want to go find the northwest corner, the absolute negative corner of our region. Okay, and if we're going to do region selectors, we're basically going to be looking at X, Y's, and Z's. Okay, so we want to note the coordinates of this corner right here. And it happens to be a really nice corner. It's 64 X and 64 Z, so we know that it's that. And then we know that the length of these walls is 256 blocks, so the difference from that point to the edge is 255 in both cases. So really, that's all we need to know, that this corner is 64, 64, and the other corner is going to be 255 or 256 plus that. We don't need to know the exact value of this corner, we just need to know that the edges were 255 or 256 in length. Okay, so before we get to building our fill clocks and have command blocks operating on them, there's going to be some game rules that you're going to want to change or be aware of when to change in your world that are going to either allow you to debug or just be an absolute amount of clutter. So if in a default game world, you're probably going to see things like this. When you place command blocks and you start using them, you're going to get some text outputting to you that tells you that a command block has been put into use. And for the most part, that's not too bad, but once you start getting a lot of clocks running on command blocks, you're going to get just an absolute spam of output. So what we want to do is change that output to false, command block output to false, so you just don't get spammed by that stuff. And the other thing is, another thing that creates lag with command blocks when they're being run on fill clocks is when you place a command block, by default this previous output box is on. It's indicated by this 0 here, or this O. And when you switch it to an X, when you click that, then you've disabled the previous output. You can turn that off by adjusting another game rule called send command feedback. By default it's true, but we want to change it to false. Now what happens when you change this to false, you notice in the chat log I got things like your game rule has been updated. It'll say things about your game mode or a player's TP'd to some other location. Those are also going to turn off when I change this to false. It's a little unfortunate, but it's just going to be the way it is. So when I change this to false, then when I place command blocks, by default, this previous output is turned off. That's another thing that's just an optimization thing. Again, we covered that in Kick the Bucket, so if you're curious about those details, go check out that series. This series is really meant to supplement that series. So anyways, let's get to building a clock and do region selectors like we started doing. So when you build fill clocks, it's going to be important that you probably want to build the start of the clock, that pillar or whatever that initiates the clock and does the filling and replacing. You'll want to build it basically toward the negative edge of a chunk or wherever you want to build it. Point is, the region, as you create the region, you basically want to draw it out either in the positive X or the positive Z. That's so that your command blocks, the order of the command blocks is being executed in the correct order. Okay, so that's enough. You're probably getting sick of me talking about everything else instead of talking about what we're here for, which is region selectors. So let's place a command block. We got nothing here. So I'm going to go ahead and build a fill clock. If you don't know how to build a fill clock, I'll leave a link to my fastest clocks video. You guys can see how to do that. But I'm just going to go ahead and build it, and I'll edit this part out, and you guys can see it once I'm done. Okay, so I got my fill clock here clocking. It is working. If I want to turn on previous output, we should be able to see. If I stop hitting cancel, there we go. Okay, previous output. We're seeing one block filled, and it is ticking with every second, so it is working. But we're going to go ahead and turn previous output off because we don't need it. Always remember that. So what I've done is basically defined a region. This entire chunk within this layer between here is going to do fill and replace for stone, and that's regular old stone. So when I place stone here, it switches over to redstone. That's how I know it's clocking. If I go anywhere outside of it, it's not going to work. So I've basically only affected this chunk. So now we can place command blocks on this, and they'll always be operating. So the first thing we want to do is we want to test that we have the region correct. So what we're going to do is we are going to say to all players within their region. So we're going to test out our region here. And this is really important that you test your selectors first. Once you start putting them on a clock, you really want to test your selectors so that if you do them wrong, you're not doing a command that is dangerous. What I mean is things like TP or kill. So if you're TPing all players within a region and you screw up the region selectors, you're going to cause a serious problem. You're either going to be killing or TPing your players the entire time, or constantly changing their game modes, something disastrous. It's much better if you just do a text chat to test whether or not you got it right. So what we're going to do is we know that corner was x equals 64. We want to go from the very bottom of the world, so we're going to do comma y equals 0, comma y or z, sorry, equals 64. So that's one corner of our region. Now we need to supply it with 3 other regions. I guess if you're curious, if I just left this alone, this would only affect that one coordinate. But we need to draw out a region, so we give it a next set, which is a change in x, so dx equals 255, so that's 255 blocks off in the x direction. And we're going to test the edges of this, so then dy would equal 255 in the positive y, so all the way up to the top of the world. And then we're going to do dz 255. Sorry, I actually want to put an equal sign. See, everyone can make a mistake there. So everything's separated by commas. I've done x, y, z, dx, dy, dz. That should be the region. All we're going to do is say you are in the region, or let's say you are in the spawn chunks. So when I turn this on, now I'm getting spammed. Elusive Euphoria, you are in the spawn chunks. And I want to test both the corners. So what I'm going to do here is just go to this corner, and I'm going to just do something so I can see it zipping by. Okay, it's working. I'm going to go outside of it here. It is not working. That's good. And then it looks like it's still not working. So that's perfect. As soon as I come into this corner, it is working. So we're good. I'm going to go ahead and fix this wall. There we go. All right, now I'm going to go off to the other corner. It appears that that wall and that corner are all good, so we want to go to the other corner and just make sure that that's working. And then we'll test probably the top of this region. So I'm going to go to this corner. It's still working as it should be. And it shouldn't be working here. And it's not. And we'll test this corner. Still not working, yeah. We're good. So this is the exact region we wanted to be affecting, and we're good on that. So we'll just go ahead and replace the wall. And we know that we got our region selected properly. So now that we got our region selected properly, what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm just going to copy this command and remove the spawn chunk, or remove the command block. We're going to go topside, and we're going to take a look at what we're dealing with here. So we're topside, it's nighttime, but I've got difficulty set to peaceful. I'm going to go ahead and change it to normal. And as you can see, we immediately got baddies spawning all over the place. So we want to get rid of these guys. There are a couple different methods to do this. You could just kill these mobs if they spawned, but that means that they're going to drop items, and then you'll have items all over the place, and it'll be kind of frustrating. So what we do instead is we TP them into the void. So I'm going to place a command block here, and we're going to do TP. We'll paste this entire thing. What we're going to do is TP. We're going to do entities, because we don't want players, entities. Now this is the next critical thing. Type equals zombie. So this is where you're saying this is the entity that I need to teleport. So we're going to teleport zombies to a specific location. And all we're going to do is, if they're in this region, we're going to teleport them to the same X, and then negative, we'll do 100. And that's an absolute negative 100, so they're basically being teleported below the Earth, basically into the void, at the same location wherever they spawn. So they spawn inside this region, they're immediately teleported into the void, so deep that they should die instantly, their items should be destroyed, and it's just, boom, gone. Okay, so we do, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change previous output to on here for just a second and do done, and you can see it's teleported zombies. Now, it should be a while before zombies spawn again, so it's actually already taken care of all of them. But I'm going to go topside, and we're going to see that we should see no zombies there. So I'm going to fly around, and sure enough, no zombies. No zombies anywhere. We got endermen, spiders, skeletons, all the other mobs, but we do not have zombies. And I'm guessing you're following where I'm going to go next, and all I have to do, basically, is duplicate this command block and change zombie to all the other things that there could be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you guys another trick in case you haven't figured this out. If you hold control, well actually, okay, there's one trick you can do that I do a lot, maybe people haven't caught it. If you middle mouse click while pointing at a block in creative mode, it picks up that block for you. So I can do that with a command block, but then when I place the command block I get nothing in it. There's a way you can copy the NBT tags along with it, which will contain all of the information for the command inside, by holding control and then hitting middle mouse button, and you'll get all of the stuff inside. Okay, so you see that I've got all of that. By the way, I'm going to turn this off. Always remember that. So now I've got all the stuff inside, so now all I have to do is change this to something like creeper. Another good way to test it is you can always have spawn eggs like this. I can just grab a creeper, go whoop, there, he's gone. And that's something you can do with the rest of these. That's probably a good idea, that as you're placing these blocks and going, okay, we need to now get rid of spiders. And we'll turn the previous output on. The previous output should tell you that it's okay, but if not, you can always grab, like if there weren't any in the region for whatever reason, you can always grab whatever it is, the egg for it, and then test it that way. So yeah, anyways, I think this should be effective in letting you guys know that this is how you use region selectors. Region selectors can be used for a lot of different purposes. Obviously, I know all you're doing is applying it to your selector, your target, or whatever, and you can do whatever command you want. So you could use these things, these region selectors, for, let's say we wanted to build a teleport pad that teleported someone outside of the barrier. You could mark off a region like this and note the coordinates or whatever, and say, okay, whenever they walk onto this region, teleport them outside and change their game mode, do all sorts of things. And then you could use region selectors for a pad on the other side that teleports them inside and changes their game mode again. But as we discussed in the Kick the Bucket series, what we prefer to do is execute detect on those sort of situations, because it means that you don't have to define new regions every time you build a protected region. Now, if you just want one spawn that occupies the same area as your spawn chunks, like we said, this is not a recommendation. It is possible. If you optimize your spawn chunks, it should be okay. But we've said, like we said before, it's probably not the best practice to keep your spawn chunks in the same location as your main spawn. But yeah, you could, if you wanted to, have it exactly like this. Spawn chunks and protected area for your spawn are in the same location, and you could get away with that. And if you were only planning on having one, you can use region selectors if you don't want to deal with execute detect. But yeah, we think that execute detect is much more versatile and effective, and it just means a whole host of really cool things. And we'll get into that in the next episode, like I said. So I think it's outro time. Ah, here we are, the outro. So familiar, isn't it? So yeah, hopefully that covers region selectors, or region arguments, I guess what they're called. And like I said, the next episode we're going to talk about execute detect, and we're going to go ahead and start building portal pads to get outside of this area, in and out of it, and control game mode. And then I think beyond that, we're going to show you how to establish, or basically use scoreboards to create like an admin team, and then a no PvP and PvP team. So the admin team would be obviously your server ops, your operators, your moderators. They would be the ones that would say, okay, you're going to put them in a team, and they have these privileges going in and out of gates. Usually what we do is, that means is if you're in the gold team, if you're in the admin team, when you go over portal pads, your game mode is unaffected. They just get teleported. But if you're in like the PvP or no PvP team, then you know that you're just a regular player, and that your game mode should be affected. So that's how we do that. So we're going to have to look at execute detect and scoreboards after that to really establish the best way to do portal pads and control game mode. At that point, then you can really just start building inside of here and do whatever you want, because now you've created a way to allow admins in and out of your protected region, allow regular players in and out of your protected region, and keep them in the right game mode. And then we'll also try to do things like creating ways for this little elevator here, or whatever, behind me, to only allow admins into the command block area. That's all I've got for this one, folks. At any rate, I will catch you guys next time. Stay safe and keep learning. Enjoy the command blocks. Bye.